have it in my possession. Back. That's what I heard it. Sorry to speak by, yeah.
It's that, I just have to correct that.
Yep. Hello, Dave. You want to start on time? Okay. We want to welcome everybody tonight to the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency's meeting. This is a workshop session to discuss the Urban Renewal Agency budget for the coming fiscal year 2024. And up at the plate, we have Raylyn, and she's going to walk us through it and explain it all to our satisfaction. Welcome, Raylyn.
How's everybody doing today?
Great. Very good.
They were provided electronically. I did not print them out.
I think if you click on the blue, where it says, up there, workshop session, does it take you to?
If I need to go upstairs and make copies, I can.
Debbie sent
So
out.
the, back to the, I'm gonna do this. Just pull up the workshop packet, not regular.
That information was sent out by Debbie, though, correct?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it was sent out ahead of time.
Yeah. Making sure I went over the right stuff. Will it be on here, Raylyn?
I kind of go over the numbers, but it's not exactly the worksheet's not on here.
Got it. No.
There should be 2 worksheets with it. I have a copy of one of them if we
Okay, I
need
was
to.
just gonna look for it.
You want me to go upstairs and make a copy really quick before we get started? Okay.
I think that'd be
Be
good.
right back. I apologize.
She sent it out a day after I went over it all. It looked pretty
So it would have been in the email. I thought we also put it here.
good. She sent it out on Friday.
Sorry, Raylene, I didn't mean to type back, but
I would much rather you guys have the numbers in front of you than not have the numbers, so I appreciate it. It's a pretty straightforward budget, but it's important for you guys to understand them.
Yeah. Where it ought to be.
car payment.
there's a house in my neighborhood.
I mean, and it's a fixer upper.
Oh, my goodness.
Updated, but.
On my most current tax assessment,
So did mine, my commercial went up.
That's the right direction anyway.
No, it is, I mean, there's gotta be.
Mhm.
With that.
Well, Bruce Fogg had that in line this last session, and he got diverted off. I think indexing is the way to go, but out of the light of day. And then, treasurer and
I think so. Probably wait till Angie gets back. Of course.
When the government prints that much cash and starts handing it out like Halloween candy, everything's gonna go up. Look at what's.
$5, yeah.
Gonna raise rates because we have too many jobs. I was just telling about it. I mean, young.
We started giving them twice now.
Mm.
Right. She had one two-bedroom apartment.
Flat. I know, why can't. I know what you mean.
Here we go.
Small.
Right, right. There you go. That's. Now how long do you gotta live at home for it down?
I've got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, mine, so same thing, I'm 21 years old.
Raylyn, did you have a good rest? We're back to you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So, if I can get this. There we go. So this is kind of what I'm gonna go over, closing of with our budget, there's impacts that happen. So closing of East Urban Renewal area, which obviously we talked about, so it'll be very brief. Revenues, maintenance of operation, project expenditures, future budgets in the online budget book, data transparency, and then we'll have questions and discussion. And you can interrupt me anytime as well. With the East Urban Renewal area, obviously we know that the 9/30/2023 is the end date. So none of the increment revenues are included in this, even though potentially we could receive past dues past this date. They are not included in this because essentially we should not be using revenues past 9/30. Our projects are set, and so we should not be using those revenues. So that is why you won't see any increment funds budgeted for fiscal year 2024. For revenues, it's all the way down on the bottom of the page. It's how this is set up. Expenditures are first, revenues are second, but I like to talk about revenues first, so, because that's really how you balance your budget. Increment revenue, I had to learn a lot about how urban renewal takes its increment revenue. It's not a easy way to estimate the amount. So there's not an easy formula. It kind of takes on the taxing authority. So whatever Canyon County, whatever City of Caldwell, it takes on that taxing, that levy rate. So that's kind of, and it's, so whatever we get, and it's that increase between what the base amount is and what that increase of value is, and so that's what we get. And so it's very difficult to predict. So for 2023, our budgeted amount was $64,678. We have already met that amount for 2023. So, but for 2024, I did predict the amount as $85,000. So I do expect the values to increase or stay steady, but with City of Caldwell's levy rate dropping, and I don't know what Canyon County's levy rate is kind of doing because they haven't set their budget yet. So I kind of am being more conservative on our revenue. If it comes in higher, that's great. But if it comes in lower, there's not much we can do about it either. So, but if it comes in higher, we can always do a budget amendment to adjust it as well if we want to spend it. If it comes in higher, it just comes in as cash, and we bank it till next year as well. So, I also did budget for interest revenue and then the LGIP revenue from our so the state pool. And so those two interest rates are staying high. I don't see them dropping currently, so that's why those amounts are much higher than they were previously. As we move on to maintenance and operations, so you'll see a little bit of changes. So the accounting and engineering services, this is for my time, for our city engineer, for our public works, any of our administrative time. Earlier this year I did, just based off of our wages, just a time of 2 hours a month, pretty basic, how much it would cost, and it was over $15,000. So that's a pretty steep increase. So I did just increase it by 5%. However, if you guys do not agree, we can change that. This is a contract with the city, so if you guys do not agree, we can definitely change it. But I did increase it. So, ICRIMP, which is the insurance, this came in as an increase due to insurance rates. So this is something that they send us a letter with what they what they're going to be charging us. So that rate is set. For audit, Rochelle and I did go out to RFP, and we did select Bailey as our RFP. Later on this evening on our agenda, you will see that contract. But their amount for 2024 is $16,000, which is pretty nominal for what their increase is. The nice thing is that what we did with the RFP is we did change the date, so it's really set in a timeline. So that's the nice thing about that contract now, is that it's set for our timeline that we really like. So, and then our legal fees did decrease from $9,305 a month for fiscal year 23 to the $6,435 for fiscal year 24. Just there was an increase, you'll see in that contract that's also on the agenda later today. It was an increase in the hourly rate, but a decrease in the hours. So that brings the maintenance and operation. There is a decrease in that budget overall from fiscal year 23 to 24. And then one of the biggest changes as we move to project expenditures, you know, I will just say this. One thing is this does impact the city budget. And in the city budget, I did not budget for this increase because I did not want to get ahead of this committee. So this is going to be dependent on so just want to caveat that there, that this is not, I did not want to get ahead of this committee. So the city budget still reflects that $216,000. So if you do decide to go to that higher amount, then I would change the city budget. But I did propose a 5% increase for the economic development support. There's a couple of reasons why. One, the city has implemented several increases in the last several years in pay, and that has come through. And so the transfers from general fund have kept coming, and so we've had to supplement the economic development team more and more. On top of that, just the increased costs that have happened overall. So this is one of those discussion points. The amount that we put here can go down, it just cannot increase. So, and then for projects, at Rob's recommendation, or I did put for the North Urban Renewal area, $50,000 just for design costs in case that there was a project that did happen in the North Urban Renewal area. However, if that did happen, it would come to you guys with a contract first before we spend that. So total expenses is $276,800, or excuse me, that's for project expenses. So total expenses is $391,274. Total revenue is $169,000. It does dip into fund balance of $222,274. So, which is to be expected. That's why we have accumulated a little bit of fund balance. And that's if we do spend all of this, for example, the design projects, and stuff like that. I can definitely go over the financial report when we go in the agenda and definitely go through cash. But with the cash that we do have and the reserves we do have, that fund balance is appropriate to spend. That's kind of why we have accumulated that cash balance. So, with this, I wanted to talk about kind of the future of where some of our reporting was going, and the budget book, because that's part of this discussion. And so you'll see it at the next urban renewal meeting, is that we're going to, instead of a kind of paper-based system, is more of an online budget book. It's going to be interactive, where you'll be able to pull reports and data. So it's going to be definitely more transparent. You'll be able to see every single line item and expenditure. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that because we have not talked about that. It's something that we did talk about in the city council, but we have not talked about it here. So, but as urban renewal, you guys will be impacted because you go through our financial system. So it's a little bit where all of your financial information will be online. So, you know, on top of that, with the new fiscal year, I do plan on providing different reports. Right now, I have a sample of it, just so you guys can see. So I can definitely answer questions about this report in my financials, but essentially this type of reporting gives more detail instead of just cash overview, which is what we have been giving updates more on. It allows you to see budget to actuals, allows you to see where the expenses are going. And so gives you more of an oversight of what the agency is spending their money on. So that is all I have prepared. Be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, Raylene. Questions for Raylene?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Albright?
Are all the bonds related to the East Urban Renewal area closed now?
We have one more that needs to be paid off, but it will be paid off before the end of the fiscal year.
And our last East Urban Renewal check, I understand, would be this month.
Yes, in July.
Have we received that yet, or is it?
I don't believe we received it quite yet, but
That'll be it. East Urban Renewal will pay no more after that, unless you said like late payments or whatever.
yeah, so we do receive small amounts monthly, but the largest one comes in July, yeah.
Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. Moore?
And it's just a clarification, we spent a lot of time on it, but how is Edie Bailey the audit company? How are they selected again?
So through an RFP, we put out a bid, 30 days, and we asked for bids from all, we published it in the paper, and the only bid we actually got was from Bailey is the only bid we got. And then Rochelle and I went through it, made sure that they met all of our qualifications, and that they met everything that was required in the bid. So
you guys approved it?
yes, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question just on the attorney bill. So we're projecting less work, is that right, for 2024? So it goes down? Was that what it was?
You want to answer that, Mark?
Yes, good evening, Commissioner. That is true. How we have done our budgets all along for the agency is we kind of track our hours over the last fiscal year and then use that as a forecast for the coming fiscal year. Typically, until now, that's been increases. Sometimes it's been flat. But I think what we're seeing now, we're beginning to see, as with your budget, right? As the east area tapers off, we've got some projects somewhat on glide path, right? We're still working clearly on a few, and I'll touch on those when we get into the meeting. But what we see in the next 18 months is those continuing to taper off, and then we'll have a little bit of a lull before we get the north area really going with some projects out there. Impossible to say for sure. So we're doing what we always do, is kind of look backwards and forecast based on, trends that we see. So that resulted in a reduction this year. We did increase our hourly rate, which is still, we think, pretty far below market. So our hourly rate is $185 an hour. We think market's more like $225 even for government work. And so we're not asking for either the agency or the city to eat that all at once. We're just consistently every year chipping away at that. Good. Any other questions about the attorney budget?
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions for Raylene?
I just had one more.
Mr. Albright?
Just so I understand, Raylene, we have this long list of projects here. At what date will all that money be spent or done? Is that a clear line somewhere?
So it's not necessarily a clear line, but the hope is to have them, most of the money spent by 9/30 and definitely under contract by 9/30/2023. So
next budget year, we should have a clean slate. We hope. That's our goal.
yeah.
And again, the only project moving forward into the next budget would be that design and engineering for the,
Yes, and that's potentially, if needed, and that's you know, whatever happens in the North Urban Renewal area, because it's still, there's a lot of stuff happening planning-wise, so.
Any other discussion, other questions? Okay, very good. Do we have a motion to close this workshop? We have a motion by Mr. Allgood, a second by Mr. Doty. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the workshop has ended. Thank you.